Hello my friends, my name is Michael. I'm from Paris in France and from the island of Guadeloupe in the West Indies. I've been a student of the Templo Indigena e Budista do Rio de Janeiro for a year and a half, and I am going to talk to you about a few different subjects: religion, esotericism, philosophy, literature, arts and crafts, mythology, urban legends. Today we are going to quickly address a rather mysterious subject in the Bible, that of Esau, Edom. Who are the Edomites? What is this strange people who concentrate all the curses of the world? Where did these Edomites live? At what time? Can we still find that trace? If you ask a rabbi, he will tell you straight out that Jacob is the ancestor of the Jews, whereas Esau is the ancestor of the Romans. But to better answer this question, we must go back to the origins of this character. Esau is the source of the myth of Edom. Let's open chapter 25 of the Old Testament. Hagar, the Egyptian servant of Abraham, gives birth to Ishmael, while Abraham's wife, Sarah, gives birth to Isaac. When Isaac reaches manhood, he takes Rebekah as his wife. The Bible tells us that he implored the Lord to make his wife fall pregnant because she was a sterile woman. God heard his prayer and she fell in pregnancy. But she felt something fighting in her womb, as if twins were fighting inside her. Two nations are in your womb, and two peoples from within you will be separated. One people will be stronger than the other, and the other will serve the younger. When she gave birth, she actually gave birth to two twins. The first one that came out of Rebekah's womb was covered with red hair like an animal, while the second one, who was beautiful, held the heel of his elder in his hand. Esau and Jacob were born. The Bible tells us that the two boys grew up and that Esau became a great hunter. He had a lot of brute strength. He liked the open air, action, blood sports, and his father loved him very much because he brought him beautiful game. Jacob, on the other hand, was a quiet and studious boy who preferred to stay in the tents to think and meditate. Jacob was more intelligent, and it was his mother who loved him more than anything. The Bible tells us that Jacob decided to play the first trick on his older brother. One day, when Jacob was preparing a stew, Esau came in from the country hungry. He said to Jacob, "Quick, give me some of that red stew." That's why he was also called Edom. We can imagine him coming from the hunt, dripping, with his complexion completely flushed. Indeed, Edom means the red one, the bloody one. Jacob replied, "First, sell me your birthright." Look, I am about to die," Esau said. "What good is birthright to me?" But Jacob said, "Swear to me first." So he swore an oath to him, selling his birthright to Jacob. But Jacob said, "Swear to me first." So he swore an oath to him, selling his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and some lentils too. He ate and drank, and then got up and left. So Esau despised his birthright. Among the Semitic tribes, the birthright of the first male child is a considerable privilege. It is an office that promises this child great authority and a great inheritance later on. Yet Esau sold his birthright for a plate of lentils. It is well known that the grains of lentils are very loaded with iron. Nothing is left to chance in the Bible. So Esau has a special relationship with this metal. Indeed, this vile metal, that is iron, is associated throughout the world and all times to violence and war, to work to force of will, to the profane industry of man who wants to exploit and submit nature, to electricity as well and electromagnetism. With these attributes, the figure of Esau makes us think of Cain and Tubal-Cain, who only relied on their own industry to live and not on the divine grace, like Abel, God's favorite. Later, in chapter 26, the Bible tells us that Esau, who is a Hebrew, marries Hittite women who are descendants of Canaan, son of Ham, which is a great source of sadness for his parents, because for the Hebrews, it is formally forbidden to marry with Canaanites. We can imagine that Esau made a marriage of flesh and not a marriage of spirit. That's why he probably chose to marry girls from the tribe considered by the Hebrews as wild and barbaric. As the patriarch Isaac, who was already almost completely blind, felt he was dying, he called his eldest son Esau to go and hunt some game for him before he gave his blessing and passed on the power of the legitimate succession. And while Esau is out in the wilderness stalking game, Rebekah asked her son Jacob to dress himself in goat skin so that his own blind father will mistake him for Esau, all decked out like an animal, while his wife will serve him the best beast of the herd with lots of spice so that Isaac will really feel like he is eating one of his son's Esau's hunting catches. Isaac is meant to drink a good wine so that he is no longer on his guard, and after his meal, well watered, he gives his blessing to, thinking of the touch that it was Esau. Finally, he gives his blessing by caressing the animal skin carried by Jacob. Ah, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. May God give you heaven's dew, and earth richness, and abundance of grain and new wine. May nations serve you, and peoples bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and those who bless you be blessed. Jacob and Rebekah's stratagem worked. Jacob inherits his father's blessing. But suddenly, it is Esau who comes back to his father's tent with a good roasted game. And there it is, the astonishment. Esau and Isaac realize that they have been fooled by Jacob. Esau begs his father to give a blessing, even a small one. Esau said to his father, "Do you have only one blessing, my father? Bless me too, my father." Then Esau wept aloud. His father Isaac answered him, "Your dwelling will be away from the earth's richness, away from the dew of heaven above. You will live by the sword, and you will serve your brother. But when you grow restless, you will throw his yokes from off your neck." Esau held a grudge against Jacob because of this blessing his father had given him. He said to himself, "The days of mourning for my father are near. Then I will kill my brother Jacob." This is how the prophecy of the two twins fighting in their mother's womb was fulfilled, and it was only the beginning. Remember that the next part of the prophecy made to Rebekah on the day of her childbirth said that two great nations from the same womb would fight for centuries and millennia until the end of time. One would carry with it all the love of the Divine Father and all his blessings of glory and abundance, while the other would have only the means of war and the profession of arms to exist, before its final collapse, its total submission, and its reduction to slavery. The Bible is very clear in Genesis 25. The elder shall serve the younger, as it is written in Malachi. God said, I have loved Jacob, but I have hated Esau. The descendants of Esau would have lived, according to the Bible, on the Mount Seir, in the southeast of the Dead Sea in Judea. They founded kingdoms on an area called from now on Edomia, which went from the Dead Sea until the Mediterranean Sea, while passing by the Jordan, from where the 7 kings of Edom, while some of them migrated more in the north toward the current Turkey and towards the Central Asia. Funny story, isn't it? Should we put it with the other myth in the closet of legends of human history? Or did the ancients through this story try to warn us that there is a human group on earth, promised to annihilation, ready to ravage the whole earth and spread war on the world before thinking? In traditional chronology, the existence of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the Near East corresponds to the Mesopotamian civilization, which would have extended from 5000 BC to 1600 before Christ. But recently, archaeologists have discovered the not at all quite existent of a people who would have started their conquest of Europe in minus 3000 before Christ. Indeed, about 5000 years ago, those called Yamnayas would have come from the Eurasian steppe to migrate towards the west of Europe. Their arrival would have violently upset the cultural and genetic heritage of the inhabitants of Europe of the Bronze Age. New technologies in DNA sequencing, including the ability to read DNA in ancient bones, have shed more light on the relationship of the Yamnayas to modern Europeans. What would have allowed this rapid expansion? The Bronze Age would have seen the emergence of a new economy linked to an increase in human mobility and the accumulation of wealth, facilitated by the domestication of horses, the invention of the wheel and vehicles, as well as the accumulation of rare metals such as copper and tin, which are the ingredients necessary to make formidable bronze weapons. The studies of the Epsilon chromosome would have revealed that it would have been a time of great inequalities, where the power was held by a handful of men who would have known how to take advantage of this new circumstance to indulge in a real genocide on the farmers of Northern Europe and the hunter-gatherers of Western Europe until India. This would be at the origin of the diffusion of the language known as Indo-European. In view of the proportion of the Yamnaya Epsilon chromosome among Western Europeans and among the upper castes of India today, this expansion has been of unprecedented violence. This predominance of male Yamnaya ancestors implies that they would have transmitted a superior political and social status to their descendants, which would have allowed them to maintain an advantage in the competition for reproduction. Archaeologists argue that the Yamnayas were an extremely sexist people, and that their arrival marks a revolution in the way of conceiving the relationship between man and woman. This coincides with the decline of old Neolithic Europe, with archaeologists reconstruct as a society that left little trace of violence, where women played a central role as evidenced by the Venus figurines. In its reconstruction, this old peaceful Europe was replaced by a society entrusting all the power to warriors. So you will say to me, it is well pretty all that, but what proof do we have that these wild and violent people coming from the Caucasus and the steppes of Central Asia is the descent of Esau? In fact, there is no real proof of this, but the chronology and the behavioral characteristics of these legendary people of the Bible, the Edomites, seem to correspond perfectly with the Indo-European flood of 5,000 years ago in Europe. For the rabbis, there is no doubt that Jacob is the ancestor of the Jews, whereas Esau, Edom, is the ancestor of the Romans, including Greeks and Germans. But why do the rabbis associate the powerful city of Rome, which dominates the entire Mediterranean, with a small province in southeastern Judea? To make a long story short, in the 2nd century before Christ, when the Roman John Hyrcanus conquered Idumea, he forced Edomites tribes to become part of Judea, and he forced them to adopt Judaism. They placed one of his converted Edomites at the head of the kingdom. Herod Antipater, who married into a Jewish high priestly family and became king of Judea. King Herod the Young, one of his sons, had a very good relationship with the Roman occupiers and was notoriously temperamental, paranoid, and murderous. Despite his official status as a descendant of a converted Jew, for the rabbis, Herod was not a Jew, but the archetypal Roman who occupied the land of the Jews. From a Jew point of view, rabbis' knowledge of Herod's genealogy established the connection of the Edomites with the Roman Empire. If we want to understand the connection of Edom and the New World Order, we have to consider that Edomites had always been intermingled in the elite's program by marriages and inbreeding. Along centuries, they have always hid themselves behind the scene of history. But the Edomite way of life had impregnated all the modern world with lies, usurpation, sex deprivation, and violence.
Hey guy, what's up with you?
Hi, I'm Michael. I'm French. I'm 44 years old. I live in Rio since 1 year and a half. I will have a conversation with you about diverse issues like religion, philosophy, spirituality, mythology, urban legends.
He seems to be stressed. Ciao, Michael. Thank you.
Ciao, bye-bye.